It's been 754 days since a young presidential hopeful stood before a crowd in Springfield, Illinois. 2 years later, the candidate has become the president, but the title's not the only thing that's changed. Our number one story is just in: the president is going gray. 6 weeks on the job, and Mr. Obama has noticeably more gray hair than when he first took office. Global economic meltdown, 2 wars, plummeting stock and job markets, all on the president's plate, perhaps all contributing to the change on his pate. Mr. Obama's longtime barber asserts that the president does not dye his hair, notes that gray hair for the late 40s crowd is in fact normal. Gee, thanks. The graying of Barack Obama first noticed during the latter stages of the 2008 presidential campaign, with the then candidate himself poking fun at the silvery strands. The discussion on presidential aging knows newsflash to those who've actually held the office: George W. Bush going from salt and pepper to just plain salt. Bill Clinton's hair, of course, morphed from hints of silver to almost jet white. And with all the talk of stress and aging, a sign of the opposite: a White House swing set. Sasha and Malia Obama returned home from school on Wednesday to discover their very own South Lawn playground. It's right next or outside the Oval Office, so the president can see what his daughters are up to, which brings us back to the original point here: another reason for more gray hair. Joining me now, the Washington editor of The Week magazine, political columnist for Bloomberg News, Margaret Carlson. Good evening, Margaret.
Hello, Keith.
This business of presidential graying, both the New York Times and Washington Post had stories about it today. Congressman Rangel teased the president about going gray at the health care summit this afternoon. The president has this stress-free demeanor most of the time. Is that where it's all going up here to the hair? That's what's happening?
Right. It's pushing out of his scalp. He seems to be blessed with a very even temperament. Remember when he was told to get angry back in the fall because he was being attacked, and said it's not really his temperament. He doesn't have highs, he doesn't have lows. And with that family, you can kind of understand why he'd be a cheerful person. I mean, what a happy sight. It cheers me up to see it. You know, most of our presidents, I mean, think about Reagan. Remember, he never said, he never would admit that he dyed his hair, but it did have a slight orangish tinge to it, which is the giveaway. But candidates want to remain looking young. But a little bit of gray, as in when Dan Quayle was named vice president and he bounced up and down on the river there in New Orleans when it was announced, and everyone said he was callow youth. And very soon after that, he did a reverse thing, which is, I think he made the temples gray to add a little dignity. Because you men are allowed to get gray hair. Well, it makes you, quote, dignified.
You know, as you mentioned that, we saw Clinton and we saw George Bush graying during their tenures, and you brought it up, so I guess we have a sequence here to sort of show the, okay, let's see, so that's kind of dark, still kind of dark, a little sort of, and then going, gone, goodbye. Is it a job that does this, or are we just really recognizing natural pigmentational processes that everybody goes through? Except Ronald Reagan.
Well, we don't have a control group of 20-year-olds who become president or talk show hosts to see if they were in the job, if they would get gray hair prematurely from the stress of it. However, we have the experience of those we've had, and you know, Bush and Clinton are fairly good examples of pretty rapid going dark to gray, and then Clinton with white.
Yeah.
I mean, you know, the job is terrible. I mean, especially now. I mean, I'm waiting for Obama, however, to get angry at John Thane and the bankers and to taking the bonuses. It's not his temperament, but you know, the life in the White House is made so smooth. You know, your lunch on a tray, your feet almost never touch the pavement, the cars at the curb, you have intersection control. But that's in exchange for having those problems 24 hours a day.
But now we have...
I don't know how many worries you have, Keith, but...
Not 24 hours a day.
But we know what the presidents are.
But are we adding one or subtracting one? Because as Mr. Bush said, the stress of the presidency did not make him go gray. It was the stress of having teenage daughters. Now, this president has younger daughters who will be teenagers by the end of this, both of them, and a playground set outside his office window. That's either a solution or this is going to make this problem exponentially worse, right?
Right. Well, there's something George Bush and I can agree on. I think children keep you young. I think teenagers make you old very, very quickly. And the Bush daughters were a particular, I think, speeding up of the aging process. But what a great thing to be able to look out the window and see your kids, even if they're going to, break a shoulder, even if they're going to fall off and break a shoulder blade. I think it's a very soothing sight.
And worst comes to worst, you and the Secret Service run out and fix it. Margaret Carlson of Bloomberg News and the Week. Great thanks as always, Margaret.
Thanks, Keith.
That's countdown for this, the 2,126th day since the previous president declared mission accomplished in Iraq. I'm the rapidly graying Keith Olbermann. Good night and good luck. And now with her special guest, the Republican National Committee woman calling for Michael Steele to resign. Ladies and gentlemen, here is Rachel Maddow. Good evening, Rachel.
Good evening, Keith. Thank you. For the record, I'm going gray right here. That's where I'm going gray first.
It is the job. It is the job.
Right here. All right. Thank you. Thank you at home for staying with us for the next hour as well.